What's up, guys? Today I finally find my words, I guess, and some thoughts to make this video. And the reason I say that is because when I made the video of A World Without Men, I had a guide, I had an inspiration, and that was something that was happening to me, made me make an observation, and I'm like, hey, because I am shy and all that stuff, and it would be kind of awkward for me to put myself in peril to go up there and tell those guys, hey, thanks so much for everything that you do. Instead, I decided to just make a video and just highlight some things that I just noticed about what guys do, but then also my personal interactions with women and how I experience the world. And I was pretty happy with that video, except that I had no idea that it would become so popular and that people would, of course, twist my meaning here and there. And as I make this video today, I have a particular person in mind. I don't remember their name, but it was a guy who was dead set on saying that I would never make a world without women video. And I kept telling him, you need to wait because it's going to happen, it's going to come. It's always been in my list. It's just that it takes me some time to get my thoughts together on a specific topic. This is not, I can flick a switch and talk about something. So, anyways, I felt compelled to have a little intro for this video just to make some things clear because I feel like someone out there is going to just think about something, and if I can think about it ahead and address it, then I think it would make the world flow a little better around here. Is here I go. Be all over the place, so please bear with me because I have absolutely no guide for this. So I'm just going to go by the list of things that I made. So the first thing I did to help me with this video is I realized that when it comes to inventions, I usually don't know who made what. So I decided to look up inventions by women. And one of the things that I found was that women invented that disposable diaper. Now, when I think about it critically, I can see how this is a very important invention because, first of all, we all use it. We all have used diapers. And when you think about it, the world would be very much not hygienic if we didn't have that. So I feel like when you have stuff that aids us with hygiene, we can be overall a healthier population. Because you know that one of the fastest ways for diseases to spread is by not practicing a good hygiene, not washing your hands, having a filthy home, having basically having dirty stuff all over. So I think that is a very good invention. And on top of that, no one wants to be walking around just like with the smell of excrement and just having that all over your skin and having rashes all over your skin, and you don't just want to have babies just crapping all over. So when you think about it, this is very good for society, and I am so glad that someone was able to come up with something that's effective at dealing with our biological necessities, because I cannot imagine leaving or living in this world very happily with a lot of just matters all over the street or all over people's homes. It would just be very filthy and dirty and smelly around here, and we don't need to be putting up with that. Another thing that I learned is that a woman invented the electric hot water heater. And for that, I am very grateful because I am one of those people who, I don't know if it's because I just got older or something, but I cannot handle cold water showers at all. Every time I need to take a shower at the gym, not all gyms are the same. Some have hot water that arrives quickly, others have hot water that doesn't even get all the way hot. And I don't take showers that are like super boiling and steaming, but if I have lukewarm water, to me that's uncomfortable. So the fact that someone was able to engineer something that we can install everywhere, from businesses and homes, and that it makes our living throughout the seasons more comfortable, that definitely makes me a happier person in this planet. Because if we lived in a place that's very, very cold and we didn't have that commodity, I guess as someone who has never experienced that, I cannot really say that it is a miserable thing to live without hot water. But I try to imagine myself in a climate that's pretty much permafrost and not having a way to be warm and take showers. Just I couldn't deal with it. Like, especially with my skin type, I'm one of those people who, as soon as I touch my face, I have a breakout. So to have water that is comfortable for me to be able to have my skincare routine comfortably during a weather that's very uncomfortable, such as extreme cold, then I think that's really nice. So I'm very grateful for that one. Then there's also the ironing board. Now, when I think about it, the ironing board is not really a big deal for me, I guess, because I don't have a job or a career in which my presentation is absolutely essential. So my clothes can be wrinkly, but my clothes do not get too wrinkly to begin with. But I guess the ironing board is important for presentation's sake. And I guess that depending on your career, it is important. So to have something that allows you to have your clothes looking really neat, I guess that's a good thing. But for me personally, I can judge people on appearance when it comes to a professional setting, and I can see how that would be important because you have a company and you want to protect your image. But at the same time, it's like I guess it depends on the kind of fabric because not all fabrics are susceptible to wrinkling like that. And I'm an active person, so my sports clothes, I guess the spandex that's in it is what helps it not get wrinkly because I have never had wrinkly leggings. I have never had wrinkly tops, like running tops. So I'm not really sure what kind of opinion to have on that one, except that I guess for the sake of looking uh, super put together for a job interview or something, then that's important. But for me personally, it doesn't affect me. But because I do like people who dress nice from time to time and it looks neat, then I guess we can appreciate that. But whatever, I'm whatever about it. But I wanted to bring it up because I know that there's a lot of people who are happy that such a thing exists. Another thing that a woman invented was the life raft, and this one is particularly awesome because when I think about it, it is important to have a method of escape for any kind of emergency. So if I am traveling by sea and I know that I have chances of surviving if something happens to the ship, then it's good to have a life raft so that you can be at least afloat. Because imagine you being in open waters and you have to somehow keep yourself afloat via physical means. That stuff will be exhausting because I every time I go swimming, I can feel the exhaustion. I can feel the fatigue. So imagine you just trying to keep yourself afloat in ocean waters that you know that the ocean is a pretty temperamental place. So it's not like you're going to have calm seas. So it's very good that such a thing exists, especially if during the emergency you get injured. At least you have something that provides that buoyancy. So that's a very good invention. I'm glad that someone thought about it and not only thought about it, but was able to create something that is effective. And on the note of emergencies, I also heard that the fire escape was something that women invented. And I feel like in my history class, I remember hearing about a story of some factory that caught fire and a lot of women ended up dying in it. And I guess that's where the fire escape came from. I did not really read up ahead on that one. I just looked for a list of things that women made. But yeah, I'm glad that when there's an emergency, we have ways that we can ensure that life loss remains at a minimum. The electric refrigerator was another thing that a woman invented. And I guess this one is particularly awesome for me because you guys know that I'm a glutton. So it's awesome that I can bring as much food as I want to and I guess really need to, and then be able to have it at home and maintain it at a proper temperature because you guys know that food that is not handled properly and is not kept at an appropriate temperature can be a way for you to get sick, and foodborne illnesses are so preventable but also are among the most dangerous. So, because this thing exists, you can have your food close by at your home, comfort of your home. So if you can anticipate that the weather is going to be really bad, you can at least do your shopping ahead and you have food in your home so you don't really have to be going out and about looking for things. And I just think that the refrigerator is just really indispensable in our lives, especially during the summer and you need a cold drink. I cannot imagine relying on room temperature water, which if you live in a hot climate, it's not going to be room temperature. You can actually feel the warmth of that water. So so yeah, I'm just really glad for the refrigerator because it makes my life comfortable and that means that I can have a life at home for days as opposed to having to immediately consume any food products that I get my hands on. Also, I can store leftovers, which means that at least if I don't get around to eating everything, it doesn't have to go to waste. Radio communications. Now, this one I'm going to sort of breeze over because I'm not very tech savvy, but apparently there was a woman who invented something to where you can remote control torpedoes or something. I'm not very good at that, but from that they were able to come up with the radio, I guess. And yeah, guys, I just wanted to mention that one because again I tried reading about it but I could not really process what that means, so at least I want to mention it. And if that has something to do with the way we communicate today, I just want to mention it because I cannot imagine my life without, say, my cell phone. So yeah. And then on the note of technology, computer software was also invented by a woman. Again, I'm not very tech savvy, but because I like computers and my phone, I cannot imagine my life without them. So I am glad that someone came up with that and I can benefit from it now. Now, on that note, now that I am done with the inventions, I have to ask the question. I guess at some point as humans, we would have been capable of producing this stuff anyway. So I guess for the sake of focusing on a gender, that's the reason I included these. But I want to just mention that I don't think that this is indicative that men would not have been able to figure this out. But but at the same time, I wonder what kept certain objects or certain goods from coming into existence. But anyways, that's beside the point. I just thought I would mention that because in my World Without Men video, you guys loved to try to grill me by saying that it doesn't mean that women are not capable of that. So I feel compelled to say that this does not mean that men would not have been capable of doing this. So I'm just putting it out there. If you don't want to believe me, that's fine, but don't take my word for it. Just visit the comment section of A World Without Men, and that is what's helping me be like, okay, possibly someone is going to bring this up, so let me go ahead and address that, anticipating the comments. Anyways, it makes this be a little more fun for me. Now let's get to some random things. In general, I think that in a world without women, I want to say this is my personal opinion, just like the entirety of this video, but I wonder if wars would really be much worse. And the reason I say that is because I guess wars may be more brutal, but at the same time, because they are so brutal, maybe there would be fewer wars. But I really don't have a way of measuring that. Like, I just don't have the capacity individually to imagine that. But I guess because wars would get really brutal, then maybe there would be fewer wars, because on one war there would be such a massive life loss that I don't think there would be that many more wars to fight. Do you guys see what I'm trying to say? So maybe because there are women in the world, wars do not escalate as bad as they could. But again, I don't have a way to be solid about that, to evidence that that's a thing. So I just want to bring that up and mention it, and maybe you guys can elaborate on it. But I just wonder, would there be fewer wars because they would be very brutal, or does that mean that we would have more wars constantly? Oh, and now that it's in my mind, I don't have it in my list, but you guys are, of course, someone out there is going to mention the fact that, well, men would not exist because, well, without women, we cannot reproduce. Let's just assume that life is possible without one side of the species, all right? I thought that that could have been implied in my last video, but you guys felt compelled to bring that up, like, well, you would not exist because without men, then you cannot reproduce. I get it. I know how human reproduction works, but let's try to think outside our comfort zone. Let's try to think outside the box. Let's try to speculate a life in which human life is possible without sexes. Why is that so difficult? Why is that so crazy to think? I did not even think that I had to mention that in my World Without Men video. But for some reason, you guys decided that you had to bring it up. Of course, it's not possible. This is a speculative video. This is in no way like what I say here is not a fact at all. This is just me with my thoughts, just sharing them with the world. But for some reason, you guys wanted to ruin my narrative by bringing that up. Of course, I get it. Like, I'm not foolish like that, but I thought that I would go over that just in case someone out there is strongly considering saying that. And unfortunately, not everybody is going to watch the entirety of the video, so someone is still going to make that comment, even though I am addressing it right now at minute 17 and a half. But whatever, just know that I am aware that you said that, I read it, and this is what I have to say about it. Ending the rant. Um, so there would also be no beauty pageants. And I guess without beauty pageants, the controversies of, oh, we're getting rid of the bathing suit competition. I think it was Miss America stuff that was going on back in like May or June, I forget, of this year. And that caused a big issue. I guess that the stuff that we argue about these days wouldn't really be a thing, because would men have their own beauty pageants? I don't think so. I don't think that guys want to look at other guys. But then again, in a world where guys only know that they're the only ones in the world, would you even have time to think about that? And what would be your inclinations when it comes to what interests you? Um, but I'm not really going to dwell on that, because I am not trying to suggest that there would be asexual reproduction or something. Let's just say that men just exist. I know that discussing reproduction is important, but because it is absurd to dwell on that because it's not possible, I just want to deal on the more political aspects of one side of the species not existing. But yeah, without beauty pageants, I guess, um, for instance, the fashion industry maybe would not develop in the manner that it does, because I feel like a lot of people look at beauty pageants as a source of inspiration. So I want to say that beauty pageants not existing would impact an industry, but at the same time, because this is a speculation, I don't have a way of testing this, or let alone um, any data really, but whatever. I like to see how much I can come up with on my own. On the note of industries and whatnot, I felt compelled to think about the fact that maybe society would be a little less consumeristic. Let me explain. The reason I say that is because I find it that more often than not, it is the women who are saying what we need to buy, what we need to celebrate. Like so and so's birthday is coming up. We remember that stuff. We remember dates. So and so's anniversary is coming up. Let's buy them flowers. Let's buy them a gift. Let's take them to dinner. Let's invite them to our home and decorate and purchase things to enhance the experience. You see what I'm trying to say? So I feel like more often than not, it is the women who pay attention to details like that. So, say buying cards, I think that's something that women tend to do more of, and men follow that example as opposed to men being the ones taking the initiative of let's start a card for so and so and let's give it to them on their birthday. I honestly have never heard a guy making preparations like that. So again, my perception of the world is limited because as an individual there is only so much that I can experience, and as an individual who doesn't really have a solid social life there is only so much that I can witness. But in my observations, and also given the job that I have in which I work selling stuff, then I can say that the traffic that I see is more often women buying those kinds of things, whereas men tend to buy those things exclusively for special occasions that impact them directly. Such as, I can have a guy tell me, oh, I am buying these because it's my anniversary. They are not saying, oh, this is because it's my sister's birthday or it's my so and so birthday. Like, maybe guys can buy that for their sisters, but more often than not, they're in company of their wives to do that. I'm not saying that guys cannot independently do that. I'm just saying that guys tend to go out of their way for that stuff if it impacts them directly in their personal lives. So, for the men out there, if I am wrong about that, let me know. But again, that is what I have observed. And because I am an outsider, I don't know what happens in your life, then I can only deduce a thing or two. But I'm just trying to mention the things that I observe, and maybe you guys can agree or disagree. That's the whole point of this, to create the conversation, and then we all can learn from each other. Another thing that would happen if the world did not have any women is that there would be no conversations about periods or pregnancies. So, you guys know that at some point you all have met a girl who likes to talk about what happens when they're on their days and how their mood is just different, how they're in pain, how cramps do this and that, and how they need to go to the bathroom more often than not and take a little longer, and how they ruin their clothes because of the crimson fluid. And I'm like, okay, in a world without women, of course, that would not be a thing. The conversation about pregnancy would not be a thing. And I am not trying to suggest that in my like world without women, men could get pregnant. Not at all, because that is not a possibility in real life. I cannot even try to imagine implementing that all of a sudden, even though the whole point of this is to speculate. But at least that conversation would be out of the way, and I know that men are not fanatics of that conversation. But for those of you who have ever fallen victim to me talking about it and you absolutely hated it and you did not want to shut me up about it, I am sorry, but at least know that in this world that is not going to happen, then you don't have to worry about periods and pregnancy. And pregnancy can be a beautiful thing, but there are some horrors attached to it, like the physical symptoms. So you guys would not really have to worry about that. But in its place, again, back on the note of wars, if the wars really do get more brutal, then I guess that you're going to deal with other kinds of gory stuff. So I guess you have to make your choice. But at the same time, you are the ones who go to wars anyway, or primarily go to wars before I get told, oh, but Zam, women are also in the armed forces. Primarily, you guys are the ones who are at the front of the lines. So you have seen some crap. I highly doubt that there's anything out there that can really shock you at this point. Oh, hairstyles. If men let their hair grow really long, would you guys have the initiative of creating hairstyles? Is it a thing that guys do? Do guys have um skill at that. Like, I don't want to say skill, but anyways, do you guys ever come up with your style? You have your hair, you let it grow out, and you style it, or do you always have someone styling it for you? So, in other words, what I am trying to bring up is, do the different hairstyles exist because there's the touch of a woman, or is that something that you just start experimenting and you come up with things? Is there such thing as a style that guys naturally rock, or do you need help at achieving that? If you're not very clear on that one, let me know in the comments what the hell I was trying to say, because I'm trying to elaborate on it, but basically, would there be more hairstyles or fewer hairstyles? Is that something that guys do? But I know that there are guys, of course, who are involved in the beauty industry and they are stylists themselves. But is that a thing that happens often? For me, the perception that I have of guys is that y'all simply do not care about hair like that. You don't go to a beauty salon and you have all these crazy specifications. That's usually something that a woman demands. But for those of you who are male and you're into this stuff, just what's your psychology behind your hair? What inspires it? Is it something that you yourself do, or you go to a guy to help you with that look, or do you like a woman to mess with your hair? Just let me know on that one, because I really don't know. My brother, all he wanted was to trim his hair so my mom could do it for him. But, just what happens with hair and guys? Guys who have longer hair, what do y'all do? I genuinely do not know a long haired guy, so that they can further educate me on that one. The fashion industry would not be as lucrative. Now, I am not trying to say that there would not be a fashion industry. I would imagine that the image of a guy would still be important for certain things. But once again, just like on my earlier note about a consumeristic society, I feel that because women tend to expect more um, without them in this world, the fashion industry would not look this broad. Like, guys, you guys tend to have a very simple style regularly, normally. Let's limit it to what guys traditionally have worn. Let's not bring in their other social aspects about masculinity. But I guess that dresses would be a thing, but not the way that we see them now. Like, women, we like for things to be soft and silky and shiny and glittery. I don't think that men naturally have an inclination for that type of thing. So I am guessing that the fashion industry would not look as diverse. When I go into um, websites where they sell clothes, the women's section tends to have accessories, and the subcategories of that is earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and the rings and all that stuff. Whereas for men, it tends to be a little more limited. I'm not saying guys do not wear necklaces, I know that they do, but the designs of them tend to be significantly simpler. Same thing with rings, same thing with bracelets. The bracelets that guys wear are usually, I don't know what to call them, but it's not very detailed. Like, say, they don't usually have stones, they don't usually have glitters or anything like that. That is what I am trying to suggest, that the broadness of the fashion industry would be a little more limited, just because men tend to be different when it comes to that. We see these like glamorous shows, guys usually have their suit and their ties. I don't think that men would still try to come up with, say, heels, or try to wear, I don't know, silky tops that have low cuts, V cuts, and stuff. I know that there are some shirts that guys wear that have a little bit of a V cut to it, but it's nothing dramatic, you know? So undergarments would also look incredibly different. I don't think that you guys would be opting for bikinis as often. See what I mean? That is what I am trying to suggest. So you guys feel free to elaborate on that one. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Am I just completely having a misconception about what males are and males secretly love this stuff for themselves? Because I honestly have never met a guy, at least in my family or my close circle of friends, that he's like, oh yeah, I am ordering this cute dress that I saw online. You know, that is a very feminine trait. So in a world without women, we can safely assume that that would not be a thing. Oh, so here is kind of a messy one, and I am going to try to make a good job at putting this into words. But would the perception of emotions, the way we experience emotions, would it be less sentimental? And what I mean by that is that you know that as women, we're always described as emotional creatures. Well, guys, of course, as humans, they have their emotions. It's just that they are processed and expressed differently. But would guys be as emotional in the sense of, let's see, sensitive as women? And what I mean by that is we as women, we have our maternal instinct. So therefore, we are thinking about being nurturing and whatnot. In a world without women, would that thing even be known? Are guys capable of having that type of an instinct? I'm not sure what the paternal instinct is beyond protecting and providing for the family, but because you are a protector and a provider, do you know what it's like to be, God, Sam, how can you say this? I don't want to just say overly emotional, but you guys know that there's a difference between female emotions and male emotions. We can experience the same kinds of emotions, but we process them differently. So if males have a nurturing side to them, how does that compare to the female one? So that, in a sense, is me making a mention of something and also asking you how it is that you perceive your own emotions in this department, because I like to think that women are more sentimentally attached, whereas guys can be sentimental creatures, but it's not to where you can be, your focus gets disrupted. Like me as a female, when I have something that's bothering me emotionally and I'm sad, sometimes my job performance is affected. It's very subtly, but I have trouble focusing. I'm not as fast, I'm not as energetic. So I feel like you guys have an ability to be able to set a barrier mentally to where you don't let that hinder you. So I'm not trying to say that all women are like this. We all are different, but usually that's the way it goes. So you guys feel free to elaborate on that one. I make a mention of it because I'm really not good at putting into words. So maybe one of you out there can throw a lifesaver out at me. But yeah, I just thought I would mention it. Organization and tidiness. So we know that traditionally the woman is the one who takes care of the home, she keeps it neat, she keeps it tidy. But in more modern days, we all have jobs. So being at home, chores become a thing that both parties do. So I guess that the way that maybe architectural designs of homes would look different, and the overall appearance of homes would be different. I would imagine that if guys do not really care for, say, a diverse closet, I would imagine that they would have a smaller closet or something. I'm not saying that guys don't care about fashion at all. I know that there's some guys out there who are proud of their clothes, but I guess that you wouldn't need such a divided closet. Like, this is for dresses, this is for tops, this is for shoes, these are for sandals, these are for, stuff like that, accessories. I would imagine that the designs of homes would be different, And I'm not saying that guys cannot want a big home, but maybe there are some things that would be taken away because it's not really a necessity. Quite like to make women's lives more comfortable at home. See what I mean? So feel free to elaborate on that one. But men can be organized and tidy because I have met guys who I'm like, wow, I'm the girl here and you're doing such a better job than me. But I'm not trying to suggest that there are things that are exclusive for women. There's stuff that is exclusive to men. As humans, we all have similar necessities. So to just say that women govern a certain department is just insane because it's okay for men to also have a part at that. But I just thought that I would bring that up. I think that homes would look different, and I feel like shelves would sit a little higher because men on average are taller. So maybe everything would just be out of reach for most people. Like we would look at it as guys are making it difficult for any other creature to get to their stuff. But again, this is assuming that there are no women in the first place. So it's not like we're trying to design stuff to take that into account. But anyways, I thought that I would bring that up and you guys can comment. Caring and nurturing. I mentioned that a little earlier, but to officially elaborate on it, you guys know that when it comes to bringing up a kid, it is important that they have both parents present. So I guess men in a world without women are still incapable of stuff like breastfeeding, of course. So I find that when you have that experience with your child, it is an important bonding experience. So as a species that is missing out on that, how would that impact our physical development and the emotional development? Particularly the emotional development, because in this world without women, we are assuming that men can exist and just make it, regardless of the very obvious factors that make that impossible in the first place. But how would that affect the human psychology at that point? Particularly the male psychology. If you are brought up in a world where you are not nurtured like that early on in your life, how does that impact your development? Um, and when it comes to caring, I guess that men care a lot about their families and about their territories, what they protect, like their homes and stuff. They are the protectors and the providers. How would your care be expressed in a world without women? What is care to you? What is nurturing to you? So, of course, a world in which one side of the species is missing is definitely bland and boring. That's why we need these differences to keep the world going round and merry and all that. But if we were to assume that a life like this is possible, those two traits, how is that impacted? So please elaborate on that for me. And then finally, the last note that I made is that discipline would vary. And what I mean by discipline is that it is commonly known that, say, women learn better in environments where the temperature is a little warmer, whereas boys learn better if the temperature is a little cooler. Like, that's why classrooms are typically not as cold, but sometimes they can get cold. But supposedly, the school setting is already geared toward making women feel more comfortable. So I remember reading that on some article. If you think that I'm making that up, I am not. So the way I would Google that, I guess, would be classrooms being warm for girls or something, and that may yield a result. But also guys tend to be a little more difficult to discipline from what most parents have shared. Oh yeah, my little boy, he was so difficult to keep under control, and I guess it's because naturally you are born as a wild person and you're trying to be civilized so that you can implement yourself better into society. So, how would civility look like in a world without women? So I guess that discipline would also vary in the sense of maybe boys would not be taking orders so well like some women can or most women can. The submissiveness aspect of humans, let me put it that way. I guess it would not be there. But again, some women are not submissive at all. So I'm not saying that it is impossible to have a world without submissiveness if women aren't there or if women are there. So yeah, what would the world look like on that one? What do you guys think? But I think that um, there are also aspects of discipline that men tend to dominate a little better. And let's say when it comes to emotions, you guys, I'm sure at some point you have heard of women who say, I am going to eat this whole pint of ice cream because I am sad. Whereas men don't typically eat their lives away. I'm not saying they cannot. I'm sure that at some point anxiety affects you in some way and you make your choices. But I guess that more often than not, you deal with your challenges differently. So your discipline at that is different. You are disciplined to not become a glutton more often than not. So just to give you a very overly simplistic, um, a very overly simplistic, that is redundant. Just to give you an overly simplistic view of what I'm trying to say. So yeah, you guys, once again, this does not, this is a very limited scope because this is me as an individual choosing what I think is interesting and important to talk about. But you guys, of course, are going to be able to contribute to this topic by including things that I absolutely did not consider. And maybe because I did not take the time to really elaborate on this and I was just trying to take care of this topic as I went. But I think that this conversation is interesting. So, um, just know that I always thought about this when I made my World Without Men video. I always had the intention of making this video, but it's just that some stuff is easier to address than others. So, once again, this is overly simplistic. I'm not trying to say that I have all the answers to everything about how the world would be, and clearly, there are some topics that are important to me that I bring up and other stuff that I don't consider that important that you guys consider important and therefore you will mention in the comments. And that is perfectly fine. That is okay. So I thought that I would put this out there. I am so happy that I finally recorded this because I've been just waiting and longing for it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed what I had to say. And if you didn't, then of course let me know. And whether you enjoy it or not, just let me know what you think overall and what are some things that you wish I would have talked about. And I will consider making a separate video about that just to share my thoughts if it's too long for me to reply to you in a comment or something. So anyways, you guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this interesting enough to make it to the end. I know that this is like 3/4 of an hour long, but I enjoyed it. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I